Hi, how's it going?
Hello. Good. I'm good.
You
How are you?
good? I'm doing
Yeah,
good. Everything's good over here. So you're back in California now,
I am briefly.
briefly. So now you get to be at the heart of all the production and stuff for Drink Me. And
Yes. Fifth largest economy in the world. I have somehow I've heard recently maybe the fourth largest economy in the world, but yeah, it's an important place to another fun fact. California supplies 80% of produce in Canada and 50% of produce in the United States, coming from the valley, the San Joaquin Valley, which is where we produce. So we are right in the mecca of um, farmland in California for basically for what we do. So yes, I'm here.
very good. So Drink Me is directly contributing to the supply chain of all consumers in the United States and Canada, essentially.
Yes, and so we have two manufacturing hubs, and we've done manufacturing both in the USA and Canada. And the advantage is not only price availability, but also freshness. And another fun fact is when produce comes across the border into Canada, it's irradiated. And so when we are buying produce in the stores, and this is it's picked fast, so it's not grown and hard, it's not grown to maturity. It's picked early, it's brought into the country, and it's very often irradiated. And in fact, if it's coming from Mexico, it's irradiated twice every time you cross the border. And these are just checks and balances for um, aphids or other uh, possibly bugs or contaminants that are in the produce. So some of it is like that, but also the irradiation speeds up the growth, the ripening process. So there's a couple of different reasons why the stuff we produce right at the source, and in fact, right on the farms that we grow it on. Well, we don't grow it; supply chain grows it. It's so beneficial to know that and understand it, but also understand that it comes those things come with a cost, right? Because we have to um, harvest it and import it. We have to do the importing and the transportation. But yeah, I'll leave it there. But those are some, speaking of California, those are some really important facts.
Of course. And I think that, well, today we're going to talk about the supply chain, specifically as it relates to Drink Me, but as like in the grander context of fresh produce supply chains and how it goes from farm to actual table, and
Yes.
the difference between the past few years, which it's an unprecedented change in the logistics aspect of how people used to buy fresh produce and ingredients versus what we're looking at, what the situation is right now. So we're going to talk about that today. And Drink Me is in a unique place because it's been around for almost 2 decades. So that you have seen the changes in how the fresh produce supply chain has maneuvered since it's Drink Me's inception to today's current climate. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So you're in a unique place to be able to talk about this in the grander context of things, and then so people can get the understanding of how Drink Me's navigated through it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And so my first question is we're going to zoom out a bit and then we're going to get more specific. But so explain the climate of the fresh produce market just in general. So what do consumers buy?
Mhm.
What do they look for when they go to grocery stores? And why is Drink Me giving a convenience factor as opposed to someone buying it in a store and making it themselves?
Well, I almost think I answered that question already in the intro, and I'll reiterate those couple of points. And the frustrating, I'll reiterate a little bit of the frustration because I spend a lot of time both in California where I have access to fresh ingredients. Here's for instance, I just juiced two pineapples. That's really easy for me to do in California. If I go to Canada, it's not an easy thing. And so the frustrating part for me is the pricing in Canada, is the freshness in Canada. And the availability of the produce, and I explained, so things are grown and supplied. So I'm talking about being in the mecca of where this produce comes from, but I also understand the logistics part of it. And in terms of our context, being in this for 20 years, we handle our own distribution now. And this is, I'll parallel this with, there's some stores in Canada that handle their distribution. And having imported into Canada both greens, so I've imported kale for our manufacturing in Canada, and it depends what province you come in for. And not only is it those things across the federal border, but within each province, there are tariffs. So if produce comes into BC and then it goes east to the prairie provinces, not only are you talking about a time, like the time it takes to go there, not only are you talking about the part I already mentioned where the irradiation is happening, but BC then throws a tariff on everything because they want Canadians to buy BC greenhouse products. And those greenhouse products are not the same as the mecca of the growing region and the rich soil and the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world, where you're getting kale abundantly and you're getting it for the same price. I've been in this industry for 20 years. The price of kale has not gone an inflammatory amount to be charging $4.49 Canadian for a head of kale in Canada right now.
So that's in
It's
Canada.
infuriating.
There is a difference between the economic situation in the fresh produce sector in Canada
Mhm.
versus
Mhm.
in California, which you're talking. So
Yeah.
California largely accounts for a majority of all the fresh produce economy in the United States. So we're not
Yeah.
exactly seeing the need for kale from Florida, for example. Not only do they not grow it there, but you're not getting it from there. You're getting it from California. So it's not like you need to take it from one state to another state. You're taking the kale grown in California and making the products in California.
Yes. And this was the move. So I used to manufacture this in Canada, and it was priced. It was just like too expensive to make, and a couple of different things that I've talked about on previous occasions where we didn't have access to the certain technology that I was using, but dumbed down right from if I just started with ingredients and I was making the ingredients in Canada versus making it in the mecca of, so just imagine this. I'm not transporting things that I have to then take. So the orange juice, for instance, instead of transporting the oranges, I would lose 62% on the peels instead of coming right to the source of where they're made and actually just throwing it in the compost. Or in California there are, so those go to pig farmers, those go for feed, so there is this sustainability part of it, as well as I would be losing and transporting. I would be transporting through all those different places. That's 62% on the peels, getting tariffed on it, getting tariffed again, and paying the logistics on it. So it is not um, possible to, it's priced out of the market, as far as, and so then what ends up happening is there are companies that are like, okay, well, I need to cut costs. And so then you get this shrinkflation, or you get this cutting of value, instead of finding, I want to make it from the following two ingredients: organic kale and organic oranges. And so our approach was to take that and say, how am I going to do this? I'm going to pick up and move that to a place where I don't pay 62% on transporting peels. I'm going to juice the oranges right there. I'm going to put it fresh into the bottle, and I'm going to transport the finished goods. So I'm transporting 100% of the finished product. And it's not irradiated at the border, and it's not tariffed in different provinces. And so really what we did was we were able over 20 years to keep the exact same value. We just moved the manufacturer. And no matter where you are, other things come into play where, okay, now I want to transport the finished goods to Utah or to Minnesota or to Illinois. Now I'm paying 3 times the price in FedEx charges. So we know we just shifted, but those are all still considered in the supply chain. So we need to consider them when we're talking about it. But my forte is obviously the parts about the ingredients and keeping the nutritional content in the ingredient and delivering that to the end user without having to cut costs, without having to dumb down our product, without having to without having, we've never changed our recipes. And these were developed in 2008. And so, and we've never, I mean, we've had to change costs because packaging has gone up. Orange juice, it actually is, it's like wine or it's like olives. Can have some good years and you can have some bad years. And orange juice price is sometimes set by, you talked about Florida. So maybe we're getting our stuff on our own farm from our own source, but the commodity, and these are commodities that we're putting 100% of commodity in our products, the price fluctuates based on peaks and valleys and industry prices. So orange juice costs might have gone, if there was frost, which there was in Texas, and there was frost in Arizona, those are two orange growing regions as well. And I believe there was some frost last year in Florida. You'll see a huge spike, and they're pricing it based on the following year. So even though they have last year's harvest type of thing. So this is, and I'm talking about suppliers. So there could have been a massive supply, and these orange juice distributors might have a large supply from Mexico. Those are already committed to big farms like our big orange juice suppliers, maybe Tropicana. I'm not. I don't want to. I don't want to say a brand because I'm not 100% sure about that. But what I'm saying is they all pool from sometimes the same place. Yes, they grow their own, but they can also grow some excess from other suppliers. So we're all pulling from the same place. And so then even if we're growing our own oranges, the price on that farm, even though it didn't cost that much, is set by the industry.
Okay. So let's go with that then. How have you seen the price changes in drink? Let's just talk about kale and orange juice then. How has the price changed in the past 10 years?
It hasn't. And I'm this is what frustrates me about walking into a grocery store in Canada and trying to buy a product that has not, it's not like you are we are able to grow kale. Like as long as you have farmland, we're able to grow it. And so we're producing our own, not us, I'm saying as humans, we're able to grow it. We're producing our own commodity. It's not like we're relying on it. We're planting the seeds and then we're harvesting it. And that's being able to supply and produce our own commodity. When kale was the new beef, of course, all the farmers grew kale, and kale price was substantially cheaper. But it's not, you plant a seed and you grow it. It other than okay, a little bit of, like I talked about just now, the industry standards. It doesn't cost the farmers more to plant the seed. Here's where it gets into things: the labor costs and the distribution cost. And so labor costs on growing, labor costs on transport, and the inflammatory, the inflation costs to retailers. So when they, like I said, depending on where the produce is coming in, and suppliers, and I'll talk about this example again in Canada. If you're going to a store that has their own supply chain, and this is why us having our own supply chain is super important. You're controlling what province it's coming in on, and you're controlling that distribution route. And so the fastest way to getting that produce to store is it makes a difference for freshness and for availability and for the middlemen that you have to pay in the middle to transport it. And then if it comes through BC, you're tariffing it. And so a lot of our organic, small mom and pop stores are getting their supply from Vancouver and Richmond, BC. That distributor has already gone through two distributors and tariffed once it leaves the province. So it's incredibly frustrating, but the labor prices have gone up and the gas prices and the stores overcharging. So those are where the costs are really, and this is why we don't sell our products in stores in Canada, because they're priced out of the market. And I would sooner deliver. So basically what we're doing is we're delivering on a product that is bare bones, cost, high value, directly to the end user.
So, in in summary, what you're saying is that being a small business producing fresh ingredients into a bottle or some sort of finished good, small businesses can't survive doing that, especially in today's climate.
unless they own their supply chain, which we did. And we did that based on we've been in this for 20 years, based on our uh, knowledge and our mission and like mission to be a value first product. We're not, I mean, I don't want to, we need profit to survive, obviously. But instead of raising our prices, we've been able to find ways of producing it by changing the location of where we're producing. And in some respects, um, increasing that volume and at that site. But that has its, we haven't always won at that game either, because at one point we were doing 30,000 units a run and all of our eggs were in one basket. So the idea to, oh, we'll get a better price if we put all our eggs in one basket, but then your eggs are in one basket. And so that's risky because when the bottom comes out from underneath you, then you have nowhere to produce one, right?
Right.
So that's happened to us. But
So,
um,
so that bottom that you're referring to was not COVID, but
no.
talking to a lot of consumers and being a consumer myself in the fresh produce market, I mean, just in general, when you walk in a grocery store in 2025, people their wallets are hurting across the board. And I want to give you some facts because I want to see what you have to say about it because you have a different perspective than most people that because the price hikes that we're talking about, those are passed on to consumers. And you're saying a lot of it is not a reflection of anything other than distribution costs, increase in labor costs as well, and other things. A lot of it was caused by COVID-19, and that probably expedited a lot of the same inflation. Like inflation would have been happening either way, but it probably expedited the process. So I want to give you some facts. I want to see what you have to say about it. So import prices, because Drinkme imports goods as well,
Mhm.
sometimes have increased up to 1,000% for food goods coming into the United States at ports on the West Coast. So that fact is pretty much saying that we import coconut water, Drinkme saying the price hikes are between 100% and 1,000% increase in price. And that
Depending
has
on what
been
commodity. Yeah. Yeah.
that has been since COVID-19. And a lot of it was caused by supply chain disruption. So
Yes.
that was passed on to the fresh produce. Secondly, the cumulative inflation rate over the past 5 years is 23.4%. And a cart full of groceries purchased for $100 in 2019 in today's market would cost 123. So $100 in 2019 is now 123 in 2025. For the same amount of goods, for the same exact ingredients, for the same exact thing, and yet drink meat's
No, no,
price
no,
does
not the
not
same,
increase.
not the same ingredients either. Not the same ingredients. So, but yes,
So you're referring to is shrinkflation, and
yes,
that's hidden from the consumer. But okay, let's just
shrinkflation.
take for
Right.
granted. Let's just take for granted that the same exact ingredients are there. We're looking at almost 24% increase in the same exact ingredients. That's impossible for people to survive.
No, it absolutely is. This is why we want people to do things themselves, but we want them and m- more recently, I've been trying to tell people. So we have products that have a lot of value in them. And how do you stretch a dollar? You can take one of our products and make three of some of our flavors because with our green three, for example, there's three servings of kale. With our green, there's one serving of kale. You could buy a couple more ingredients and make three of those. So the idea to shop smarter, because I could sit here all day and talk about the frustrating parts. My frustration is with the retailers and with the everybody in the supply chain taking advantage of this word inflation. Um, because the retailers are and they've been caught for this. The retailers have been having record profits. This is both in the United States and in Canada.
Mhm.
Now, some of those retailers, yeah, record profits because they're making brands like us do very expensive influencer marketing, co-branded marketing, or flyer marketing or in-store advertisement. So you also have to, as a brand, you have to buy into that marketing program. So it's almost like when a company says, okay, well, we can't survive, so we're going to open a magazine, right? We're going to do another stream of revenue. So some of it is streams of revenue, but some of it is reflecting on the consumer. And don't get me wrong, these stores are having record profits. And so you don't have record profit in an inflammatory situation. You have record profit when you're reflecting the not only the cost on the retailer, but then you're saying, oh, well, you know what? I'm just going to use this word inflation to bump up by another 5 or 10%. And so, like I said, when we use the word local, shop local. So don't buy things that are coming from other countries, such as, and I want to explain that. So if you can buy things locally, sometimes you can't. So oranges, for instance, avocados don't grow in Canada, so you've got to bring them in from another country. Sometimes you have to bring them in from Mexico. So in North America, we have the Mexico, USA, Canada agreement, and so produce coming from any of those regions are not tariffed. There is no tariff on them. There's the transportation cost, which has gone from 720 for a pallet of chilled product to $6,000 to a pallet. It is impossible. But then if you find a way to do it and you shop locally, but not only shop locally, I don't mean like shop with the local yeah, okay, obviously you want to shop with the local. I mean, during the summer, if you're in Canada, you want to shop from the local farmers. But even at that, those prices are matching what's in the store. And I work at a farmer's market and I walk around and I say, how is a head of lettuce $6.50? No, sorry, not a head of lettuce, a head of celery. It's not possible. Okay. But we have to factor in all these other costs, the labor costs, the transportation costs, and sometimes it's not transport. Your farm was 3 hours away from here. You're not transporting it. Yeah, your labor costs are more expensive, but you're pricing it based on the commodity. So there's this commodity pricing. If the retailers are charging this much for it and I'm growing it homegrown, I need to charge more for that. So there's a lot of that stuff happening. And so the more that you can find a Canada, Mexico, USA supply chain. So I just talked about pineapples, for instance. Pineapples can come from different regions, but if they come from Costa Rica, they're going to be tariffed when they get into America, and then tariffed. Actually, they're tariffed really only once you get into the Canada, Mexico, USA, North America. But if you buy something that's grown in the San Joaquin Valley, for instance, there really shouldn't be that much inflation on that type of a product. The berry industry, those have gone, and a lot of it is the supply chain and the world pricing on things. So you have to look at whether it's a commodity or an everyday item. So as much as possible, you try, you go in a grocery store and you try to find the most economical thing. And to be honest, if I'm giving advice, one of the most economical things is herbs. You know, we anything green. So you go up to the green section and you see what everything is, where there's anything green, and it's all very, very expensive. Herbs are one thing that can deliver on the value, and you can put them in your smoothies. I recommend putting them in smoothies. I recommend topping them on every meal that you make. It should have fresh herbs. You're adding a level of freshness. And that gets into, my talk on trying to be more raw, more like if you can do 80% raw in your daily intake, or conscious about it, you're living a better lifestyle. If you can have a well-balanced diet, but you can certainly add herbs. That's a very cost-effective way to do it. Add greens, chop your greens on top of your food, and you're taking everything that, I mean, even if you're going to sit and you're going to eat a steak, well, you could put a handful of parsley on top of it. That is very economical too. So I don't really have answers to, when you talked about your grocery bill that you used to buy is this price, you're going to have to buy less packaged foods and more things that you're going to have to take that labor cost and make it by things. But we're returning to, the 60s and the 70s where people used to, if you wanted something, you make it by yourself. And I think, and I sell a packaged product, but I advocate for taking that packaged product and making it your own. If it's an economical thing, if it's a convenience thing, yes, they're formulated to drink like that. And if you have, if you want a meal supplement or you want a breakfast supplement, or, add more variation, or greens or fruits and vegetables to your diet, drink it like that. If you can't afford it, add to it, because you're still getting those values that I'm talking about right from the farm, no radiation across the border, no added inflammatory transportation costs, other than the dumbed down product.
So you touched on what I was going to ask. So we talked about the like your experience being a business owner of a fresh product brand. Your experience in the market, which is a cutthroat market, nonetheless. I mean, it is the most competitive market around for sure, and a lot of it has to do with the lifetime of the products that they stay on the shelf. It's not like you just package something and it can stay on the shelf. It's not like you preserve it for 6 months. The maximum fresh shelf life of drinking products is 90 days, and that's even above industry standard. Most of the time, it's not the case.
Yes.
So we touched on that on what Drinkme has done differently than how the market is going. So the market's going like this, and Drinkme's kind of swayed a bit because we've realized that this is not like the pattern of how things are going in the consumer market is not the way that Drinkme wants to do things. I mean, the mission statement of Drinkme is to put health in the hands of everybody. We can easily sell it probably for more than what we do. And yet the price hasn't really changed. In 2012, you sold it for $6.99 on the shelf, and today we sell it for $7.50. And that is way against industry standard compared to the inflation rates of every single product on the shelf in a grocery store. A lot of it has to do because we don't sell in grocery stores anymore. We sell direct to consumers, right? And so that's one of the things that we've done differently than our competitors. And the other most important thing is that we haven't changed the recipe in the entire time that Dreamy has been around. And so when we look at things, Dreamy has done things differently on purpose for this very fact of staying within our mission. And because the consumer is at the forefront of our mind always, right?
Yeah, I mean, we started this company based on, I mean, we deliver extreme health, and it's important. So not only to spread the word that we need extreme health, that we need what we're offering on a daily basis. So if you're not getting it from us, you still need it. And so that's a little bit of a guilt trip. I mean, I challenge everybody. You need to eat greens. You need to eat, in fact, you need to eat 2 heads a day. Most people are not even getting half or any. Um, but if you, so we're a product that delivers on extreme health that we need. And we also want to deliver the value, but I understand this product should be well over $10. In fact, when I pulled it out of stores, it was in Canada, it was $12.99 a unit, a bottle. And I just said, what's going on here? And this is what my frustration with the stores and the supply chain. I don't believe that these costs are true costs. And I think, and I'm not, it might be, and teach their own. I think that stores can deliver on less, I don't want to say less margin, but there's better ways of doing it. And this is, I'd like to challenge people, because I just spent half an hour telling you that instead of cutting the value, we found better ways of doing things. And this is what we're missing. These Retailers, supply chain, anybody in the supply chain, instead of just raising the price because it's, oh, well, that's the commodity price. Instead of just raising the price, do the harder thing and find a better way to deliver on that can of tuna for a cheaper price. Because a can of organic tuna in Canada is like 16.99. Who's going to pay for that? You know, um, I think we need to return to some of the old values of, you know, smarter ways of doing things. And I do want to add one more point to that. And you talked about the grocery bill is now $125 instead of what it was. You could buy the same items and you could compare them if you save the packaging on those items and you compared them to the packaging on the items before whatever date you said, 2020, and you compared the packaging. Some packaging is going to be smaller and you're going to be surprised by the fact that they cut it and didn't tell you about it. Some packaging is going to be, well, now we're adding this ingredient or that ingredient as it used to be, you know, let's say it used to be olive oil, and now it's vegetable oil. And vegetable oil is a standard term for soy, canola, all these oils, as long as they're not coming from an animal source. Um, so now you're getting crackers that, you know, they used to be olive oil, but it's like you can't even find any olive oil in the package. Um, so it's not only, so it is a more, in terms of the percentage that you're talking about, it's more than what you're talking about. I would say it's closer to 50% because then you have to compare the value of what you used to get and the size of the head of lettuce or the size, you know, so the size of the head of lettuce, they could grow it till it's bigger, but they harvest it faster, right?
Hmm.
Chickens, oh, so for instance, when you're buying meat, chickens, you're probably going to find they've got more fat on them because they change the feed. And you know, there's more fat on them, or they're bigger because sometimes they're injecting them with certain things and still complying with standards, right? But you really have to pay attention to what you're eating, what you're buying, and there's been so many times where I've put stuff, you know, shopping in Canada, and I just put stuff back, and I go home and I drink my product because I can't. I don't know how people are affording to buy the ingredients to live the lifestyle I pitch. And that's a concern. And I don't have the answer to that. I want to sell, I mean, I do. And this is not a brand pitch, buy my product because it's cheaper than what you can buy, but I guarantee you the value.
This topic obviously cannot be fully encompassed within the time that we have today, and we're almost out of time now. But I think the last note would be that Drinkme has consistently done things differently. There's no doubt that things are different today than they were 5 years ago. A lot of that was expedited from the pandemic. In today's market, the companies that are going to survive and the ones that are going to be successful are the ones that have stuck to their roots. And that's what Drinkme has done. That's what is evident Drinkme has done. And today, so we delved into a little bit, like just dipped into a little bit of the aspect of supply chain, what has happened, what Drinkme has done within that, and where we're going to be going. And so next week, what we're gonna talk about a different topic, probably something along the lines of how Dreamy has been within that as well. But I appreciate your time, and it's definitely I think a lot of people need to know this kind of a perspective. So yeah, I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. This is my favorite topic.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, well, we'll see you next week.
Okay, take care.
Bye.